Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. I'm James Baggett, founder of Car Dealer magazine, and today on the show I'm delighted to be chatting to a very good friend of mine, TV's Mr. Wheeler Dealer, Mike Brewer. Good afternoon, Mike.
Afternoon, James.
Nice to see you, Mike. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, for those of you who don't know Mike, and that will probably be no one, I'm going to give him an introduction anyway. Mike is a car dealer by trade and the star of the world's biggest car show, Discovery's Wheeler Dealers. It has 200 million viewers around the world, and he hosts it with Anstead. Mike started life buying and selling second-hand cars before he got his big break in TV, which he'll tell us about in a moment. Now he runs Mike Brewer Motors. They sell 6,000 to 7,000 cars a year from sites in Sheffield and Dunstable. He's also the host of our annual Car Dealer magazine Used Car Awards, which we've worked together on for 8 years. Now, if you're watching on YouTube and you've got some questions, please submit them. I'll try and get to them if I can, but I've got lots of questions to ask Mike. And Mike, I know you wanted to keep this interview as positive as we possibly could be. So let's start with how you got into this industry right back in the day, selling cars.
Well, I come from a car family. And by the way, hello everyone out there. And I'm glad that I got an opportunity to do this, James. So thank you. I was born into a car-loving family. My dad was a car customizer in the 1970s. He was well known. He had the covers of magazines and did some very famous hot rods. So I was used to engines on the kitchen table, gearboxes on the balcony. I remember my dad airbrushing an Indian Chief on the bonnet of a truck, a Renegade truck, and he did the bonnet on the balcony of our block of flats where we lived. And so from a very early age, I was just brought up around cars. I was dragged around car shows during my summer holidays. And when I wasn't at a car show, I was down the workshop cleaning my dad's tools or passing my dad a tool or helping out on the cars. And very quickly, I learnt my craft from the age of, say, 8 years of age. I learnt my craft about, what makes a good car, what makes a bad car. My dad taught me that. And by the time I got to 16 years of age, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't care less for cars. I wanted a scooter. I wanted to travel around the country. I wanted to chase girls, drink. I wanted to do all those things. But I realised very quickly you can't do much with a scooter and a girl. So a car it was going to be. So before my 17th birthday, I bought my first car, which was a little Mini. And it's that car that started my journey to becoming a car dealer at the age of 17.
So where did you have this first car dealership? Because I know that's how you ended up getting your big break in TV. But we'll come on to that in a moment. But tell us about that business back in the day and where you found your love for selling cars.
Well, I found it with that Mini. And the Mini was beige, Erin A beige. It was a 1,000cc little Mini. It was a GJJ 55OJ. So I hope it's out there somewhere. That little car was my life. I lived in it, literally. My mum said, quite funnily, my mum says, you sat with your driver's license, your provisional driver's license at midnight on your before your 17th birthday. And as soon as it was midnight, you were begging your dad to take you out, because I could already drive. You were begging your dad to go out legally on the road with L plates on. So once I got my Mini, I loved that car. I drove it everywhere. And unfortunately, my sister's neighbour reversed into it and smashed it. Now, I'd only paid £300 for it, but I got paid out by the insurance company. And with the money that they paid me out, it was almost a write-off, £300. I spent the money fixing the car up and then modifying it. I put new seat covers in it, different wheels on it, put new beauty rings around the headlamps. I just done a wheeler dealer little flip on it. And I managed to sell it for £800. Now, at the time, I'd taken a car from £300 to £800, and I'd earned more in that one deal than my mum and dad would earn in a month, back in the 80s. So for me, that was the trigger. That was it. I wanted to do this again and again and again and again. So by the time I was 18 years of age, I went to work at a car dealership. In my first week of working there, I was getting paid £100 every car I sold. In my first week of working there, never sold a car to a member of the public before at a dealer level. I sold 11 cars in my first week. And when somebody peels off at the end of the week 1,100 quid, plus your £100 wages, and they put that in your hand. I've never seen that amount of money in my life. Come from a very poor background. My life changed. I thought, well, I can better my life. I can improve my family's life with this money. I can now contribute to my family and pay my mum a rent. And I'm never going to look back. And I worked tirelessly hard. I worked continuously, tirelessly hard. And I'm still doing it today. I'm still sort of doing that same methodology, every single day. And it's never changed.
So what were those cars that you sold back then? Those 11 cars. Do you remember what they were?
I can remember them. I sold some cars, some very famous people back then. I remember selling Frank Bruno a Volvo 760 GLE. Nice. And then Gary Mason, who was the other great British hope, he came in about a week later and also wanted a 760 GLE because he didn't want to be outdone by Frank Bruno. Peter Sissons, the man that reads the news, I sold him a Granada Gear X-Pack. Sandy Tosvik, I sold her a Mitsubishi Shogun. So I was just selling sort of premium high-end cars, working for this dealer down in Tooting, South London. And I worked there for many years. I ended up running the company for them in my early years. By the time I was 20, I was running the company. I had sales staff underneath me. And by the time I was in my 20s, I realized that this is something I can do alone. And I should go alone. So by the time I got to about 22, I started to venture out. I was still working at the dealership, but I started to venture out my own as well and have my own little site and put my own cars on the site. And I've never looked back. So I've been dealing for like 35 years, 38 years.
I'm sure a lot of people don't actually realise that you've got that car dealing background, but it's clearly led to a very long and successful career in TV, Mike. There was a chance way of getting into this, if I remember rightly.
Yes,
I think could you tell us the story of how you actually fell into doing what you're doing now?
So my friend Dave Batty, I hope he's out there, he's an amazing guy. He was selling nothing but 205 GTIs, Golf GTIs, Renault 1916 valves. We had a site in Wimbledon and we were flying. We were doing so well, me and Dave. We were absolutely loving what we was doing. And we took turns in taking some time off to go and buy cars, and the other one would look after the site. And there was one day I went to Wimbledon car auctions to go and buy some cars on my day off. But on my way back, I couldn't help but swing into the car site, even though it was my day off. And I walked in and Dave was sat there cross-legged on a table, having had a dodgy curry the night before. And it was Thursday, so the phone was ringing because the Exchange of Mart and Auto Trader were out. And it was Thursday, so Dave was desperate to get to the toilet, but he couldn't leave the phone. So as I walked in, the relief on his face when he went, "Answer the phone, please, I've got to go." He ran off to the loo. I answered the phone, and at the very next call was a young lady called Celia Taylor, who asked me every question you could do about a Mark 1 Golf GTI we had in stock. I gave her every answer, and she said, "You sound like just the kind of guy I'm looking for." Oh, being chatted up here. And she said, "Actually, I'm not ringing about the car. I'm ringing from Channel 4. We're making a car show and we're looking for a good dealer who knows his stuff." And I said, "Absolutely not for me. No, I'm just not interested." But she found out where I worked. She turned up with a video camera and she asked me again, "Please tell me, your name in the camera and talk me around the car." And I refused. And she said, "Let me just shoot it for fun anyway." So there was a 205 GTI in the showroom, and I walked around it and I told her everything you need to know about 205. 2 days later, she phoned up and said, "I've just shown the bosses at Channel 4. They want you to come in for a screen test." I turned them down. I kept saying, "No, I'm just not." I was doing so well as a dealer. There's no way I wanted to put my tricks of the trade, my secrets up on screen. So I turned them down. But I did offer to help them. I said, "I'll give you some support. If you're putting a show together, I will give you some advice, what cars to look for, what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing." And I did. Over the course of a few months, I spoke to a team of producers and researchers, and I told them some stuff they should be doing. Should we buy a Maestro? No. Should we buy a Mini? Yes. It was that kind of conversation. And that went on for a few months, and then they stopped ringing. They just stopped ringing. And about 6 months later, Celia phoned me up and she said, look, we made the show, it's completed and we put it together, but now we've changed our tune. We don't want to put a car dealer in it, but we wouldn't mind a car dealer fronting it. We want somebody genuine fronting the show. Would you mind coming in for a screen test to front it? And I said, look, she pestered me. And I said, I'll go for a laugh. And I turned up and there was Quinton Wilson, Mike Rutherford. I think Tiff was in the picture back then as well. Several other guys, all in their suits, learning scripts. There was an MG Midget and a Nissan Bluebird in the showroom, and everyone was getting a turn to talk about these cars in camera. And everyone went, you know, they'd done their bit and they left. Quinton and Tiff and everybody left. And then it was down to me, and I'm standing there in jeans and a t-shirt. And they said, tell us all you need to know about the Nissan Bluebird. And having listened to Quinton say that it's the finest car built in Sunderland and it handles like the Duchess's tea trolley, having heard Quinton say that, I just looked at the camera and said, if I come out of a nightclub at 2 o'clock in the morning, hanging, that's the taxi that's going to take me home. And there's a way to spot if this car's been mini-cab to death, because all Bluebirds had. And so I'd done the tricks about, you know, stone chips, pulling the seatbelt out, looking for puddles of sick on the back seat, that kind of stuff. You know, where they put the aerial in a plastic bag on the boot lid, look for marks, those kind of things. Anyway, they looked at each other, looked at me and said, you just got the job. You are the guy, you've got the job. So I hosted a show called Deals on Wheels. We shot that in a little dealership in Catford. They paid me £200 per programme back then. Woo! We shot that in Catford. And by the third week of that show, it became the highest rated show on Channel 4's history then. And by the fourth week, I had a guy called John Bentley, now presenter of The Gadget Show on Channel 5. John Bentley was the producer for Top Gear on BBC. John Bentley phoned me up and said, we want you to come to Top Gear. And that was it. Once I told Channel 4 that I'm being headhunted by Top Gear, Channel 4 put me on a longer contract and gave me my own show, which was Driven. So I went on from Deals on Wheels to Driven. And then eventually, obviously, that led to Wheeler Dealers.
So, Mike, right back then, it must have been quite a change going from selling cars to presenting TV.
I was still selling cars, James. I was still, in amongst all of this, I'm still a car dealer.
So I was still
selling cars. Yeah, I couldn't let that go.
Did you find it daunting at all? Because I mean, you know, I've seen you present for years now, and you're clearly a natural at it, and it doesn't come across as hard work. But has that always been the case? Back then, was it something that worried you? Did it scare you at all?
Yeah, what scared me, and I think it would scare anyone, especially now when we've got all forms of social media, and you've got more dealer networks and more individuals working at dealers going out there on and selling their cars or talking to their own audience. And this has become a new medium where we can sell cars. You have to look at what what skeletons you got in your closet, and whether somebody's going to go, I wouldn't buy a car from him, he sold me a dodgy car in the past. Well, fortunately, I've never done that. I've always been, I've got my dad had a very good ethic with me. We're not a religious family, but we were brought up with very, very good, solid fundamentals and ethics as a family. And one of my dad's major things that he used to say to me all the time, he said, never cheat, never cheat. Don't cheat anyone. Don't cheat at cards. Don't cheat in life. Don't cheat anyone. And I never did. So when I was offered this chance on TV, I had to think about that very carefully and say, is there somebody that's going to come out of woodwork and say that I've done them wrong in the past and damage me? Unfortunately, I never had. You know, I was just a straight, good guy that sold plenty of cars in a good way. So that gave me the confidence to know that if I'm talking to people on screen, there's nobody out there that can throw their remote at the TV and think that I've done them over in the past. So it gave me confidence. And I think that confidence shined through in those first few weeks, so much so that the BBC came chasing after me. And so much so, dare I say, and I don't want to sound facetious, but 22 years later, and I'm still presenting car shows and currently have the biggest car show in the world.
We'll come on to your dealerships and the industry in general in a moment, which is obviously the reason that we wanted you here. But a lot of people are going to know you from Wheeler Dealers, Mike. Clearly, 200 million people watching the show across the world is an incredible number. Tell me a little bit about how that all began. I mean, because I think I'm right in saying that you pretty much started this car restoration show idea, didn't you?
Well, thanks for recognising that. Yeah, in 1997, when I started making Deals on Wheels, as that series progressed and we got up to series 5, we had less of Richard Sutton's time, who was my co-host, and we had less of his time because he was very busy putting Goodwood Festival of Speed together. That's what his job was. And so they wanted to use more of my time. So I come up with some little ideas. The bits that I rejected right at the very beginning about showing my tips, how to be a good car dealer, I started to pull those into the program. So I come up with this little thread within Deals on Wheels about taking a car and how to flip it, how to improve that car yourself and do it on your driveway at home and sell it for more money. And I did several of those little how-to videos, if you like, within Deals on Wheels. Well, that little moment was the very first time anywhere in the world, there's not another show in the world that had ever showed you how to improve a car. There were gardening programs. Do you remember Changing Rooms was on TV at that time? There's Ground Force was on TV. So there was how to change a garden, how to change your house, but nobody had told you how to change a car. And it all started there. That genesis of that idea was the first time somebody showed how to flip a car. And once my contract with Channel 4 was over, I was being headhunted by ITV and all kinds of, ITV, the BBC again, for Top Gear again. But Discovery Channel, this channel only been running for 5 years up until then, came at me with my own show. And they said, look, we got a show for you. It's called Grand Autos, where you're going to buy it and sell a car for £1,000. And that little element that you did on Deals on Wheels, where you show people how to flip the car, we're going to make that into a whole program. So I like the idea of having my own show and bringing an idea of mine, into fruition. So I went with it and I said, yeah, let's go with it. And very quickly we realized it'd be better if I had a mechanic to help work with me in the workshop. And it was called Grand Autos back then as the pilot. And that was the genesis for Wheeler Dealers. That went on to I'm still making it. I make it in Hollywood now, and I'm still making it today. I can't believe it, all these years later. And now we have over 100 car shows, all plagiarizing that original format of Wheeler Dealers. That they can all trace their history back to that. Well, no, to Deals on Wheels. They can all trace their history back to that original thought that I had about showing the public how to flip a car.
The question that I'm sure you always get asked, and I'm going to ask you as well again today. Sorry in advance. Is what happened between you and Ed? Because clearly you had a long relationship. You worked on the show for a long time. That stopped, and you've now got a new presenter. But what happened?
Nothing, really. Nothing at all. Me and Ed were bouncing along, very happy. 13 years together, godfather to my child, my best friend. We ate, drunk, slept almost together. We did everything together, me and the guy. When I say slept together, we slept in, caravans and tents and in hotels when we're out. We spent a lot of time together. And no, we were bouncing along quite happily. But during that final year that Ed was there, he'd just become more difficult. He'd become more angry with the way that the show was being produced. And I could see that. And, I had my frustrations too. They would manifest themselves in different ways. But Ed's frustrations were, he took them out on people and crew. And he put himself into a position where it became untenable, really. And for Ed, what he wanted, more or less, was to just work less. And unfortunately, Wheeler Dealers is an animal. It really is an animal. You need to be devoted to it. You need to work 6 days a week and 17-hour days. And don't get me wrong, Ed did that, and he worked fantastically, and he's an amazing talent, a brilliant mechanic. But he just become disenchanted with the whole notion of how we made the show. And particularly when you're in California, which is where we were then, and you've got the beach and the sunshine outside, I get the need to want to spend more time doing that and spend more time out there. than being in the workshop, which is a box, you know, that you're in for 12 hours a day. So for Ed, he just got to a stage where he simply just had enough. We never argued, we never shouted, we never rowed. He wasn't sacked, he wasn't pushed, he wasn't tricked, he wasn't cheated. None of that stuff. All the stuff you read online is all absolute crap. No, he simply decided one day that enough was enough. It wasn't for him. He thought, and you know, a lot of people do, and unfortunately for Eddie, he made that mistake. He thought he was bigger than the show, and he could leave, and the show would die when he left, which broke our hearts. And you know, for me and the crew, we were left with no careers. You know, and the production team, Ed had decided that was enough, and that was the end of it. But 5 months later, I kept pestering Discovery Channel, and we rebirthed the show with Ant. And I've been working with Ant professionally for a couple of years before that, and Ed. We all worked together on live events. And I said, let's get Ant in. And 5 months later, we did a screen test. Discovery Channel liked him, fortunately. And Ant came into the fold. And now Ant's married an American who's a big TV star, and he lives out literally in Hollywood, and he's now fully American. So it's been a real roller coaster ride, you know, for Wheeler Dealers. And now there's a new evolution for the show as well, because we've come up with a new format for the show called Dream Cars, where I'm trading up people's cars, and that's resonated with the audience fantastically. They absolutely love it. Plus, they love my new co-host in that we brought in, a guy called Mark Priestley, otherwise known as F1 Elvis. He's the guy that took Lewis Hamilton to his first world championship. So this guy's got great credentials. Nobody could say he's not as good as Ed or Ant. You just can't say that. It's impossible. This is a guy that's worked at the pinnacle of engineering. So we brought Mark in, and it's been fantastic to work with him. So much so that we'd like to bring him in a bit more into the Wheeler Dealer family, which I'm very excited about. And Wheeler Dealers has got a very, very bright future, because now we've got this really good team that all are pulling in the same direction.
That's incredibly exciting to hear, Mike. I wish you all the best with the Wheeler Dealers side of things. But I'm also very interested in your car dealing business.
Yes.
You've got Mike Brewer Motors, 2 sites, Sheffield and Dunstable, as we said at the start, selling 6,000 to 7,000 cars. Tell us a little bit about those dealerships and what dragged you back into the industry to set up on that sort of scale.
Yeah, so Mike Brewer Motors came about through a mutual friend of ours, and a great person in the motor industry, one of the straightest, funniest, loveliest guys, and I know a lot of people listening will know him, Mr. Paul Hibbert. Paul and me have been friends for absolutely years, and Paul had a relationship, or was working for a company called Evolution Funding. I, at the time, was looking to get back into the dealership world. I was going to open up a new Mitsubishi dealership, funny enough, just a few years before. And I was looking to get back into the dealership world, purely because I missed it. You know, I missed that face-to-face, the shaking hands with the real people out there. You know, as much as I have this career on TV, at heart, I'm a genuine car dealer, and I missed it. And I've got something to offer in terms of car sales, you know, and I know that I can run a really good operation. So Paul Hibbert had mentioned that they had some cars back at Evolution that were coming back in off of lease, and they needed to be disposed of. So I met with my directors there, with my fellow directors there, and we decided that let's house them under my name and start up a dealership network. So we started off in Sheffield, in the town centre, with a lovely site, held about 120 cars. I think Toyota, when they owned the site before, they could only ever sell out that site. I think their maximum was 60 cars a month. Well, within 3 months of us opening, we were turning 120 cars a month. So at the site, we just grew out of it instantaneously. And we put together a team, together with DP, who's just the most amazing guy, John Tustin. We put together a team that's unbreakable. And now we've got this amazing workforce that are devoted to Mike Brewer Motors. They work tirelessly hard. As I said, we sell thousands of cars each year. I couldn't be any more prouder than when I turn up and see my name on the side of a building, knowing full well that, you know, some of the ethics that I've instilled that were passed down to me from my dad, and I'm instilling it on the staff. And now we've got this. Well, we did have, up until COVID-19, we had a phenomenal business that was going through growth after growth after growth. And before we get to the negatives of what's happened, to celebrate that, you know, to celebrate that business, we decided to expand more towards London as well. So we opened up a site in Luton, Lee Grave Road in Luton, which I bought BMW at Luton. So we had that site, but again, very quickly we grew out that site, and now we've moved to Dunstable, to a big 3-acre site in Dunstable. And it's been phenomenal, James. I'll be honest with you, it's been absolutely phenomenal. And, you know, we've got, so far we've had up to 99% customer satisfaction rating. We're always at around 97, 97.5. So we're doing the job right. You know, we do the job right, we do it well. We price accordingly. The cars are presented beautifully. Staff are amazing. The DP is just incredible. And I'm very proud of the business.
So what happened when this crisis kicked off, Mike? And what did you have to do as a business?
Yeah, it's been, you know, much like everybody else you spoke to, no doubt, James, it's been a disaster for the used car, new car industry. 97% of sales dropped immediately in the month of April in terms of new car sales. That then filters down to the used car sector. So we've been through, you know, we had to furlough the staff immediately. You know, we simply can't keep the doors open. We was told by the government that we weren't allowed to do that. So that's what we did. Unfortunately, furloughing over 100 staff is no mean feat, and you know, other dealer groups and other companies out there know how difficult that is in itself. And these people rely on us. You know, they rely on us as a business, as an organisation, to pay their mobile phone bills, to pay their gas, electricity bills, to you know, put food in their mouths for them and their children. And we're very much a family-orientated business. So it was heartbreaking to see that immediate drop-off, that immediate crash. And since, it's been even more heartbreaking to know that each time, you know, the government tell us it's going to be another few weeks, going to be another few weeks. There's now a little glimmer with what's to be, you know, things are starting to open up. But it has had a drastic effect on what's going to happen in terms of, and we'll talk about it, in terms of prices of used cars, and in terms of what's going to happen in the used car and new car industry when we all come back to normal. Yeah, it's been tough, James. It's not a thing I want to live through again.
So in terms of that time, you furloughed 100 staff. Some dealers I've spoken to have managed to do a little bit of business. And I know you're pretty well set up online, aren't you? I mean, there's been a lot of dealers who haven't had an online sales solution. I know that's something you're a big believer in. Has that stood you in good stead during this time?
Yeah, we've taken inquiries. I'm going to be honest with you. We haven't sold anything online because we certainly didn't know what the government's guidelines were until just recently about how we can deliver cars, how we can prepare cars, how we can facilitate that sale to that person. There was no real government guidelines on that. And we're not geared up as a company with PPE to you know, take a car that's surgically cleaned to somebody, drop it on their driveway, you know, surgically clean gloves to get them to sign a form. We're not geared up for that. You know, we certainly wasn't. We can gear up for it. We certainly can do it. So we just had to listen to government advice. And for us as a business, although we're an online business, we've taken leads and we've taken inquiries, but we certainly haven't sold anything. But now we're being told that we can now sell something. But I think most dealers groups out there will agree it was better for us to keep the staff on furlough than it was to bring them back, because it's, you know, to switch the lights on a 65,000 square foot building costs a lot of money, and to keep the staff on furlough was better for us as a business than it was to bring them back. But now we will be slowly bringing staff back. We need to work out how that's going to happen, you know, keeping with the rules of social distancing. We need clear signage, of course, around the businesses, around the sites. and there's little problems in itself because the sign makers, the sign companies, they're not in operation. They're out of business at the moment. Their staff are furloughed. But we need signage. We need instructions. We need to have a clear message that we can tell our customers online. This is how this is going to work when you come to get a car. But I do believe we can make it happen, and we can come out of this in a positive way.
It's definitely the big headache for dealers at the moment, is the end of the furlough scheme and the tapered ending, and making sure that we can bring staff back into these businesses slowly that meets the demands of the business. It's certainly going to be a massive challenge, and
it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge change. Plus, you know, what does the business look like when we come back? You know, it's very obvious that doctors, nurses, frontline staff, NHS workers, firemen, ambulancemen, police, they need cars. You know, we sell over 100,000 cars a month in the UK, probably 200,000 cars, new cars a month in the UK, and we haven't sold anything for the last couple of months. So there's at least 300,000 or 400,000 cars that haven't been sold. So that means when we come back, there's going to be a bump. There will be an initial bump where people rush out to go and get cars because they need them. Plus, there's going to be some positivity in that. I think there's going to be some good news, because there will be a bump in car sales, both new and used, for a number of reasons. One is because obviously we've got to play catch up. Another reason for the used car industry, there's been no new cars being made, so the used car industry is going to take I think a better bump out of it. And thirdly, people are now not thinking about going abroad for their holidays. People are thinking maybe the safest place to stay is here in England. So they might be looking out their driveway at their 12-year-old Passat and thinking, that's not going to make it down to Bognor Regis. I better get a better car. So I think there's going to be some real positivity to come out of this, in the sense that there's going to be a bump in sales. But I don't think that's going to be sustainable. There'll be a bump, and then I think it's going to tail off again. This is my prediction. And when it does tail off, for companies like our company and the way that we operate, we're definitely going to have to look at shrinking our business and how we reduce that business and do it in a positive, good way, and support the staff correctly in the best way we possibly can.
I've heard some horror stories, Mike, if I'm honest with you, over the last few weeks. That the way some dealers are treating their staff at the moment is truly shocking. And I think
if a member of staff had earned commission by selling a car before the furlough scheme, he deserves that commission. It's as simple as that. That's why I'm a salesman. I went to work for my commission. That's why I went to work. I went to work to earn my money through commission sales. It's not an excuse for a dealer or a dealer network to say, no, the rules have changed. We're all in this boat together. No, it doesn't work like that. If a salesperson has sold a vehicle on commission and that vehicle's been sold and delivered, it makes no difference. You need to pay that person their commission.
Absolutely. I think there'd be a lot of the screen and agreeing with you on that point. I certainly do, Mike. Let's touch on used cars, because this is obviously your speciality in your businesses. Yesterday we reported on news from CAP HPI. They spoke to us exclusively about used car prices. They have seen a 3 to 5% dip. They are going to start moving prices, they say, again next week. The volumes currently moving in the trade are around 10%. They think next week they're going to be up to 15%, and they will think that's enough to be able to move some values. They clearly haven't done it for the last 6 weeks. What are your thoughts on what's going to happen to used car prices? And also, what are your hopes?
Okay, well, look, my thoughts and my hopes are going to be wrapped up in the same conversation. I'm going to be pretty vocal about this, James, and I hope lots of the dealers out there will agree with me. Some may not. Some may think I'm talking daft. But look, if CAP and Glasses Guide, this industry runs on those two books that come out each month. They hold the cards of the used car industry. They tell us what our cars are worth and what they should be sold for. They hold those cards. We've supported those two publications for the past 100 years. The used car industry has supported them for the first time ever. We really need their support. For them to simply think that we can knock 3 to 5% off the stock value of cars, it could be disastrous for the used car industry. It could be an absolute disaster. Take me, for instance. If I'm holding, say, £30 million worth of stock, and big dealer groups are, which is money that I've got lent out from banks. If I've got that much stock and they reduce my stock level, they reduce the stock pricing by say 5% across the board, that will knock 1.5 million pounds off of my stock value. Now, James, I haven't got that. I don't think I can come to you and borrow it off of you. I don't think I can borrow any more off the bank. So I'll end up in debtor's prison, James. And it won't only be me. There'll be plenty of dealers listening to what I'm saying now and agreeing with me. This is a scary time, and we need them to think very carefully about how they come back editorially and they tell us what's going to be happening in the used car trade going forward. We need a very gentle way into this in terms of their pricing, because I simply can't have that amount of money knocked off my stock value. My business will collapse. It's as simple as that. And that means there'll be over 100 people out of work immediately because a guide comes out and dictates what the motor trade should be doing. So we need their help as much as possible. We need them to get behind us. We've helped them over the years and supported them. Now we need their support. And I just want them to do it very, very carefully.
I mean, clearly these guys have got to report on the data and what's happening out there at the moment. There's not much of it happening at the moment. One of the points that CAP HPI made to me yesterday was their biggest concern is the rental and leasing markets putting those cars back into the used car market too quickly. I mean, rental companies have got no tourism. They're not using, those cars are not being used in the same way. So they're probably under a lot of stress as well. If they go to liquidate that stock too quickly, that could flood the market. And obviously used cars is all about supply and demand. So what would you say to those leasing and rental companies? Because, you know, they're the ones who want the values to remain high too.
Of course they are. And I am a partner in a leasing and rental company. So I know exactly what you're talking about, James. I tend to think that we shouldn't be talking about spreading doom and gloom messages like that. I think there is a positive message to be said that when this market bounces back, it's going to bounce back. And when it does, there's going to be a shortfall of sales. And that will be supplied by that rental and leasing market coming into used car stock. I tend to think there'll be a bit of a mess right at the very beginning for a couple of months, but then that will just filter down and it will even out. So there might be a little bit of a, you know, the plates will be spinning, but I tend to think they're not going to crash on the floor. We're not going to break any plates. I think we get out of this if we all think about how the pricing of used cars is priced correctly, how we come back into the market and we as dealers price correctly, how we can entice those customers back into our dealerships and into our showrooms in a positive way, how we can make sure that they buy a car from our dealers in a way that still adheres to social distancing. I think we can end up coming out of this rather well as businesses. And it will, you know, certainly for Mike Brewer Motors and certainly I know for other dealer groups out there, they'll be looking at themselves at this moment and realizing, well, maybe we can operate in a smaller level. Maybe we can operate in a different way. And maybe we can lean more online to more online videos, more online sales. And it's going to change. This market, this world is going to change. It's inevitable, it is. But it doesn't mean to say, and this is why, you know, I don't want there to be a doom and gloom message, it might not change for the worse. There's a very good chance it might change for the better.
Mike, what would you say to those dealers out there that could be in similar circumstances? There are going to be a lot of dealers who have got a lot of stock on their books. They've probably been losing a huge amount of money over the last few weeks. They might be tempted to liquidate stock too. And I think one of the dealers that I spoke to referred to it as selling tenors for fivers. You know, and I thought that was a brilliant quote, which summed it up. I mean, what would you say to those dealers that may be tempted to sell tenors for fivers?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would look at the retail stock first, look at retailing your stock as first, because I think there will be customers out there initially. As I say, people wanting a holiday at home, doctors, nurses, dentists, whoever they are, frontline staff that haven't got their cars. I think there will be car sales initially. Look at doing that first before you start selling tenors for fivers, because there is a way, dealers, you know, we're a hardy bunch of people. And we're a big family, you know, the dealer network in this country. We get to see that every year when we do the used car awards. We are kin, you know, we are kindred spirits. we're a hardy bunch of people. You know, we're a good bunch of people as well. And I do believe that we can deal our way out of this. You know, we are dealers, and that's what we're good at. You know, somebody gives us a bunch of tenors, we don't sell it for a bunch of fivers, we sell it for a bunch of 20s. That's what we do. So let's deal our way out of this in a positive way. As long as we're supported correctly by the industry, by Cat Glasses and the auction houses, as long as we're supported correctly, I think we can come out of this in a good way.
Just a few quick fire ones for you before we go.
Any questions on YouTube?
We've got one from Colin Hennessy, who has asked about selling second-hand electric vehicles and what your concerns are versus selling normal combustion engines. So if you would like to take that one, then you're more than welcome to.
I've got no concerns about selling. There's no concerns. Just battery life. That's it. You know, and I think that just manifests itself in terms of used car price. You know, there'll be a price for that car when it's 5 years old, and there'll be a price for that car when it's 10 years old. And if it's coming to the end of its battery cycle in terms of mileage and its age, that will be reflected in CAT HPI guide, and it'll be priced accordingly. So yeah, I have no issues about it at all. So, just like buying a normal car. This electric car thing, it's kind of weird, isn't it? People sort of talk about electric cars holding a stick in their hand and point, you know, oh look, it's an electric car, and they sort of point at them with a stick rather than touch them. They're just exactly the same. It's the same thing. It's just got a different power plant. That's it.
Your favourite car, Mike?
A Mini, 1960s Mark 1 Mini. I own one, several.
And your favourite modern car? What would you put your money in now?
Oh well, look, we're full circle on this one. My new one, a Porsche Taycan Turbo S.
Oh, and so you've ordered one of those?
I've got a new Taycan Turbo S coming. Yeah, and I'm very excited by it. Very excited.
Do you know when you're going to get it?
I should be getting it around August, or I was going to be getting it around August. I would imagine some people may have fell off the list by now, so I might have elevated myself up the list because I'm still taking mine. I've got the worst carbon footprint, I admit, of anyone. You know, I own dealerships up and down the country. I fly backwards and forwards across the Atlantic once a month. I drive cars for a living. I drive old cars for a living. So I've got a terrible carbon footprint, and I do care about this planet and the environment and people. So yeah, I've got to bought myself. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm going to start wearing bicycle clips and pet dolphins, but I've just got to bought myself my first electric car, personal use. So if you're going to get one, you might as well get a tasty one.
Yeah.
So I've got a Turbo S.
Perfect excuse. That sounds amazing. Yeah. What other cars do you own, Mike?
Several. So I've got a little collection of Porsches. So I've got a collection of 911s. I've got a collection of Minis. I've got a beautiful Citroen SM. Some people out there know and would have seen that. Beautiful 59 MGA. Just had a full nut and bolt restoration. Some people would know that car as well. Yeah, so I've got cars in America. I've got cars here. I've got cars spread all over the place.
The lockdown lifts and you can drive anywhere on a road trip. Where do you go?
Oh, that's a good one, James. I think the very first thing I'll be doing is I'll be pulling the 59 MGA out the garage in this beautiful English countryside, finding an English country pub to go and sit in, have a Scotch egg and a warm pint.
Sounds good. What about the car that you desperately want to do on Wheel of the Years that you haven't done?
Lotus Cortina.
I
may have found one, so that might be coming up. I may have found one.
What about Cleo Williams? I've always wanted to.
Cleo Williams, fantastic. They just done one on Salvage Hunters Classic Cars. Yes, Cleo Williams or a Turbo 2 or Gordini. One of those has definitely got to come into the fold as well.
And you clearly enjoy your job, Mike. I take it you've probably got the best job in the world. Do you not think?
Yeah, I definitely have. You know, if you can turn your hobby into your career, you're never really working a day in your life. I'll be honest with you, Jane. You know me personally, and a lot of people, no doubt, listening do. I do work hard. I work tirelessly hard at what I do. We do work 6 days a week. We work 17-hour days. But truthfully, it's not really like working. It's just like a passion. It's a hobby. I'm no good at putting up shelves. I'm no good at mowing the lawn. I can't build a wall, but I can restore a car and I can sell a car. That's what I know. I don't know anything else. And I absolutely love my life. All my success comes down to one simple thing. It's the motor car. And so I love and admire everything it's done for me.
You certainly might not be very good at putting up shelves, but you're certainly pretty good at filling them, Mike, as I can see.
Oh, no,
from
yes,
behind it.
because this is my library, if you like. It's all car books. And I always say to everyone, if you're going to go out and buy yourself a classic car, fill your library before you fill your garage. And get knowledge is power, get as much knowledge as possible. And that's what this is. You know, I peel down a book. If I'm looking to buy something, I'll peel down a book and I'll read it.
Wise words. Mike, lastly, what has this crisis taught you? What's the most important thing you think you've learned off the back of this?
That's a really good one, James. The one thing it's taught me more than ever is time. You know, time is the one commodity that we've all got, and it's very, very precious. Recently, I've had lots of time on my hands, so I can give my time away for free. So I've been doing video messages to cheer people up, free, because I've got the time to do it. Time to spend with my wife and my daughter. Time to spend walking the dog around the park. And I've realized that as much as I love what I do and I love working hard, time is the most important thing all of us have got, because it's limited. When you see that we've got the highest death rate in Europe and nearly 30,000 people in the UK have died, you realize time is precious and it's tiny. So it's the one thing I'll be taking away from me with this. I'm going to go back to work and work hard, but I will be looking to take more time out in the future to spend with the ones that I love. And that includes you, James.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure to see you. Thank you ever so much. Love to the family, and I wish you all the best with getting your businesses back to work.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to everyone out there listening. It's been an absolute privilege and an honour, and it's nice to get my points across. Remember, they're just my opinions, so it's as simple as that. But good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mike, thanks ever so much for that. We've got one more show this week. It's one of those another strange bank holiday weeks where the days feel no different to any other. Tomorrow, it's Langley Prestige's Simon Webb. If you want to get involved in car dealer lives like this one, you can email me, james@blackballmedia.co.uk. Find me on Twitter at cardealered, or hunt me down on LinkedIn. If you want breaking news sent direct to your phone, I've set up another Car Dealer Magazine WhatsApp group. First one got full. Just send me an email and I'll get you included. There's a full schedule for Car Dealer Lives on our website. If you scroll down on the homepage, you'll find them. It's cardealermagazine.co.uk. Thanks once again to Mike for joining us today, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Goodbye.